Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last session of our series. We have another great opportunity to share good information with good people. So today, I'd like to just say this is a partnership between the 21st Century Scholars, Community School Partnerships, and the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. You're going to hear a little bit more from me about the IU Bloomington 21st Century Scholars Program at the end of this presentation. So without hesitation, I kick it to Julia.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Julia Jennings. I'm Director of Community and School Partnerships. And I want to echo Vince that we're so glad to have you all join us today for the sixth and final session of the 21st Century Scholars Pre-College Academy for 2020. Over the last 6 weeks, we've been introducing you to topics and experts who can guide your college readiness journey. And we began our series with an overview of the state of Indiana's 21st Century Scholarship. And over the last several Saturdays, we've heard from presenters about important topics and tips related to student success and study skills, exploring career opportunities, the IU admissions process, campus life at IU Bloomington, paying for college, and how to navigate SCHOLARTRACK. If you are unable to join us for any of these conversations or would like to watch the recordings, we'll be distributing those via the option that we had in the RSVP. You can also call us at 812-856-5935 or email us at cpartner@indiana.edu for more information. And so for this final session, we welcome back Brittany Collins and Greg Harrell from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. Brittany and Greg are going to walk us through the enrollment process for the scholarship and are here to help answer questions you may have. After the Commission's presentation, Vince Eisen will share with you more about additional student support services and financial resources available to 21st Century Scholars who attend IU Bloomington specifically. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any point during the presentation, and we'll be sure to address them in the Q&A. If you have specific questions that are more confidential in nature, please send a private chat message to Jim Melikar or Lisa Huffman, or direct it to the presenter who you'd like to ask the question of. We will either answer those privately in the chat, or we can establish a breakout room for you to answer them and ask those questions. To send a private message, scroll through the participant list in the chat window and select the individual you wish to speak with. The chat function should change from sending to everyone to sending to the individual privately. And also, if you require any language assistance, the Commission can also provide support in that area, specifically with Spanish speakers. You can let us know that information in the chat as well. So please let us know if you have any issues. And with those housekeeping items addressed, I'll turn the mic over to Brittany and Greg.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Thank you, Vince. Thank you to all of our partners at Indiana University for your collaboration and partnership in bringing together the first 5 sessions that have been facilitated, as well as this culminating presentation this morning focused on 21st Century Scholar engagement. To the families who are with us today, thank you so much for sharing your time, especially during a Saturday with us. We're so excited to talk with you about 21st Century Scholar enrollment. This is an incredible program, and we're so excited to share with you today. Most of our presentation is going to be focused on our online application, specifically through the parent or legal guardian accounts. But before diving into that, just in case perhaps not everyone's been with us for all the former presentations, I just wanted to set the groundwork talking a little bit about the 21st Century Scholars Program. This program has been around for a while. We're going on 30 years actually this year. And since its inception has been designed to make higher education in the state of Indiana an affordable and attainable reality for all Hoosier students. And we're very glad to be continuing that work today. It's incredibly important. It's also important that we're talking right now because the program structure requires that students enroll while in middle school during 7th or 8th grade. And specifically with our 8th graders, they must enroll with us by June 30th. So we're so happy to have you on the line today and be explaining that process step by step so that you can actively work to enroll your student in our program. The program itself, after students are enrolled, they do go through post-secondary planning and readiness activities throughout their entire high school career that are facilitated by the commission. And we also have academic expectations of our students, specifically to the diploma type that they earn, as well as the GPA that they graduate with. We want our students to be successful no matter what post-secondary dreams they have beyond high school. Students who do earn our scholarship earn up to 4 years of paid tuition at eligible colleges and universities here in the state of Indiana. We open all different roads up for our students. And what that means is that we pay at public institutions, such as Indiana University, as well as our private institutions that are both nonprofit and for-profit. And we help our students determine what's the best fit for me throughout their time in high school. Generally speaking, the scholarship pays about 40% of the total cost of attending college. We're a tuition-based program, but we also try to really aggregate and put into an open source resource scholarships as well as wraparound support that our colleges and universities provide specifically to 21st century scholars. So we introduce students as well as our scholarship to other forms of scholarship and grant opportunities that make the post-secondary experience more affordable. So that's what we do in a nutshell. When it comes to applying, before we dive directly into the application, Brittany and I wanted to mention the items that are needed to successfully apply. We'll begin with the student. If we look at the first bullet and see that we need a student's social security number, date of birth, and then address at the dwelling in which they reside. Next, for parent or guardians, we do need a social security number or an individual taxpayer identification number. Those work the same for the program. So if a parent happens to not have a social security number, we're perfectly fine with the individual taxpayer identification number. And should an individual not have either, we will allow that application to go ahead and go through, and we'll connect with you later. We just want your student to be enrolled and not miss that deadline. We can work through those conversations later on. Moving down to the next bullet, we are a need-based program, so we measure that based upon household income at the time in which a student applies for the program. What we do in looking at income, we always go one tax year prior to where we currently are. So since we're now in the year 2020, we are now using 2019 household income from our families, and that's gross income that comes from all sources. We need that from every member of the household. Lastly, and very importantly, we want to communicate, obviously, a student status after they've been enrolled with us. And we do that all electronically now. So we do not mail paper copies of that confirmation like we used to do in the past. So we absolutely need a valid email address for our applications as well. And so, you know, anything such as Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail Live, can work for that. So those are the items that are needed prior to applying. If you don't have that information with you today, don't worry at all. Brittany and I are sharing our contact information as well as the contact information for our outreach coordinators throughout the state. We cover all 92 counties and provide local support to families. So if you don't have what you need today and have questions later on and need some help throughout the process, we're more than happy to provide that support. So the online application, transitioning to that, it all begins on SCHOLARTRACK.in.gov, which is our one-stop shop for all state financial aid in the state of Indiana through the Commission for Higher Education, which includes 21st century scholars. So as a parent or guardian, to kick things off after arriving at this website, this is what the homepage is going to look like when you get there. You will go for the link that says register for an account, where it says not registered yet, and click on it. And that will take you to the subsequent page, which starts with having you choose your account type. There are a number of different accounts in SCHOLARTRACK. You are going to select the parent one, and then after doing so, you'll click register again for the second time. We're a little redundant, but it gets us to where we need to be. So after you click register, you're then going to plug in your account information. And it doesn't ask for a whole lot. It just needs your first and last name, as well as a valid email address. One thing that we do want to highlight is that iCloud accounts are very common types of email domains that people like to use. Unfortunately, that is the only email type that we have issue with in our system. Unfortunately, iCloud blocks those messages that we later send to you from arriving to your account, so we highly recommend any other type of email address that was previously mentioned a few slides ago. You complete the CAPTCHA at the bottom that just basically signs off that you're not a robot. And then afterwards, to the right of that, there's going to be a button that says create my account, and it will highlight blue. At that point, you'll click it, and you'll get this confirmation message that says, thank you for creating your account. After doing that, an email is going to be pinged to whatever email address you used for that information from us with a link for you to set up your account password. Very important that you click the long blue link in the first paragraph to set that up. If you click the login here button, that's just going to take you back to the SCHOLARTRACK homepage without setting up your password. That link will expire within 72 hours. So if you don't get to that right away, it will expire, but that's perfectly fine. You can just go back to SCHOLARTRACK. You've already created your account. There's a forgot password link, and you can click it, and it will send another email for you to set up your password. It will come, it's important to note, from a do not reply email at che.in.gov. Occasionally that will get stuck in people's spam inboxes and not in your general inbox. So if you don't see it right away, it typically comes in about 5 minutes. Definitely take a look there, and that's probably where you'll find it. And then after you set up your password, you can go back to the SCHOLARTRACK homepage. Your account is now ready to go. So you're plugging in your email address as well as the password that you just created, and that's going to give you access to the system. When you first log in, this is what your homepage will look like as a parent or guardian. Right below the top of it, where you see the larger button that says apply for the 21st Century Scholars Program, this is the area in which you can find the application for 21st Century Scholars. So you click here, and this is going to take you, as I said, to the application. It looks a little bit intimidating. I think a lot of people see all the different steps to it from the beginning and think, wow, that's a lot. It's not, we promise. Really, most of the questions are focused on number 2, about students, so getting student demographic information, and then 3, application details, where we're adding additional members of the family, their income, focusing on those types of things, and everything else is pretty quick. It generally takes what Brittany and I like to tell people is around 30 minutes to complete, sometimes a few minutes shorter, sometimes a little bit longer, but that's generally a pretty good rule of thumb for the time you need to carve out to complete the application. So to get started, you click Get Started, and that's going to now take us into the application. So for the first question, students have to be Indiana residents in order to be eligible for the program, so we'll click Yes. A student also has to be, for the next slide, a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. We get a lot of questions about what is an eligible non-citizen for your program purposes. If you click on the text there, it is a link, and it will provide you a summary of all of our eligible statuses as well as non-eligible statuses. But just for, since we're on the line right now, for eligible non-citizens, you're predominantly looking at permanent residents here in Indiana, essentially green card holders, and there are some select statuses as well that allow for eligibility, such as refugee students or asylum seekers that have had asylum granted. So, that resource is definitely available for you to take advantage of. But if you have some questions about that as well, feel free to reach out to Brittany or me, and we can help you kind of navigate those questions or uncertainties you might have. Next question, the student does have to attend a middle school that is accredited by the Indiana Department of Education or maintains accreditation that's recognized by the State Board of Education. So unfortunately, students who are from taking classes in traditional homeschooled settings are not going to be eligible for our award, but students who attend virtual schools that do have one of those 2 accreditation types are still going to be eligible for our program. Okay, this one's important. So we talked about in the second slide the application period. It's open for 7th and 8th graders. And so for right now, if your student is in 8th grade, meaning that they were in 8th grade during spring of 2020, they're still considered 8th graders for our program purposes up until our deadline of June 30th. For 7th graders, they're considered 7th graders, same thing, until June 30th. And then once we roll into July, for our program purposes, they're considered 8th graders. For students presently in the 6th grade, you can't apply just yet, but as soon as we roll into July, you'll be treated as a 7th grader, again, for our program purposes, and thus can complete the application. So that can be a little bit confusing there. This question, I want to focus on it for just a moment. We get a lot of questions about it. So the question asks, is the student currently in foster care or legal guardianship? We have different iterations of our application depending on the student's living circumstances. So if you are the student's parent, you're going to click the last button, number 3, where it says, no, the student is neither in foster care nor in legal guardianship. I am the student's parent or step-parent. However, if you are the student's legal guardian, you will click the second button, which says, yes, the student is currently in legal guardianship, because the applications are slightly different. For students who are in legal guardianship with someone other than their parent, income is not going to be required as part of the application. It's going to be waived. So it's important, because if the wrong button's clicked on, the application is not going to populate in the way that you need it. So wanted to make mention of that. Moving on with more information about the student's name. Obviously, we need their date of birth as well, their social security number, and then the address, as we talked about before, and items that we need. The student's email address, we ask for that too, as well as email addresses from parents if they have them. The student's phone number. And then, as I mentioned, our eligibility is measured by household income for each member of the family. We're looking at gross income. All members of the household does include the student. We know that in most cases, students, you can just leave that blank, all zeros, but there are cases in which a student might be, depending on the circumstances, receiving something like Social Security payments, and those would need to be included in the application because they are treated as gross income. So the student's current middle school, we'll need that. And then we also ask for the student's high school. We get more questions about the high school because at this point, sometimes it's not clear where the student plans on going beyond middle school. We ask families, you don't have to know for sure, but wherever you think it's most likely your student's going to go ahead and include that, because we need to have a place for them to go once they've left middle school and they're transitioning into high school in our system so that they have a school. If that changes, you can call us. We can update the school for you. We also, on a monthly basis, ingest information from the Indiana Department of Education that if a student changes high schools, we're notified of that, and that will automatically be done in our system. So either way, we'll figure that out, but we just need a place to put the student once they're no longer considered a middle school student in our system. What is the student's gender is next. And then there are a couple questions about the student's racial identity as well as ethnic origin. These two areas are optional, but they're incredibly important for the work that we do, especially the work that Brittany and I are focused on every day, looking at educational equity throughout the state. And it really helps drive our outreach strategies across the ground, both statewide, regional, as well as through local communities, to make sure that we're effectively serving all populations with the 21st Century Scholars Program. So we highly encourage folks to include that, but it is an optional field. I wanted to make note of it. Next is household information. So we need to know, aside from the student, who belongs to the household. So there are areas to put in parents, step-parents, or guardians, as well as other household members for your total household size in this area. Next, if for example, there's just a student and parent residing in the household, we'll then focus on the parent's information, starting with their name, social security number, or individual taxpayer identification number, as I alluded to earlier. Either of those is fine. And then again, reiterating, if a parent does not have either, they can check on that box and that will waive that requirement. And if we need to connect with them later on, we will absolutely do that as a program. Again, the focus is on getting the student enrolled so that our deadline is met. Next is the income information. It's the same questions or parts that we've seen before referring to the student. We need that same information for the parent, looking at their gross income from all these different sources. Parent's email address, phone number, and then it's going to ask you to review the household information. So if there are only, in this case, 2 members of the family, we're good to go. We can continue to proceed on. But if we accidentally left someone out, you can actually, in this part of the application, so you're not going back to a different part and trying to navigate through it, you can actually, there's a link to just add additional household members here. So it's a little bit more intuitive and user-friendly. Next is the Scholar Pledge. We want our students and families to understand what our expectations are, right at the time of enrollment. Because once a student has transitioned from, middle school to high school, that is the time in which they are going to begin completing the Scholar Success Program, which is really the cornerstone of our expectations and preparation activities for students throughout their time in high school. And then there's the academic component as well, looking at their diploma type. We expect our students to earn no less than a minimum of a Core 40 diploma. We always encourage them to go above and beyond that, but that is our minimum, as well as GPA. Our students need to graduate with no less than a 2.5 cumulative GPA. So we're constantly talking with them about those expectations because we want them, obviously, to meet our requirements and earn their scholarship at the end of the day. It's not just about academics, though. We also want our students to be good citizens and great servant leaders, both during high school and beyond it. So our students, and this part has existed since the inception of the program, our students cannot drink alcohol until reaching the legal drinking age, use drugs or other substances, or commit a crime or delinquent act to be in the program. So that's something important for students to know as well. There's the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, that students have to complete as a scholar starting their senior year and then each year in college until they've earned their credential. And many different other components. I won't read through them all here, but we want our families to understand what they are, and then we actually have students and families check off that they agree to all components of the pledge. There's a parent piece as well. And then afterwards, I didn't take a screenshot of this last slide, but it's a verification piece. It just gives you all of the information that you've included in the application so that you have a second to review it. And so if it looks good, you're good to go. You can hit submit and your application has been filed. If there's something that needs tweaked, you can do it there very quickly. And so that's really the last part of the application. After you submit it, you'll see this as a confirmation page, which will talk about next steps, and it tells you you will receive an email notification regarding your application status. That will go against the email addresses placed on the application. So again, arrives between 5 and 10 minutes. If you don't see it right away, it should likely have arrived in your spam box. We also provide some important resources, not just about 21st Century Scholars at the bottom, but also about Learn More Indiana, which is a special initiative through the Commission for Higher Education, where we provide college and career readiness resources, basically from cradle all the way to career. So there's some great information, not just for your student, but also for adults who might be looking to skill up or change trajectories in the workplace. We highly encourage you to take advantage of those resources. Outside of that, Britt and I wanted to talk about our outreach team. So as I alluded to at the beginning of the presentation, we cover all 92 counties and have 8 different regions providing support. So all of your outreach coordinators should be there. So you just need to find your county, and then your outreach coordinator's email as well as phone number is going to be provided to the right. And that information is on our website as well. And then to end things, Brittany has placed her email there for anyone to follow up. If you have questions you want to connect with her on. And then at the conclusion of the presentation today, I'll also be just watching my phone for a little while to see if anyone calls in and has kind of one-on-one specific questions they want to connect on. If I don't answer, please just leave me a voice message and I will make sure to get in touch with you as soon as I can to answer your questions. So thank you very much for being here today. This scholarship program is so amazing, and something that we talk about on a daily basis is that not every state here in the United States has a program such as 21st Century Scholars. So we encourage our families to take advantage of it. It can make all the difference in making your students post-secondary and career dreams a reality. And we're very glad to support you through all phases of our program, starting right now with the application, but everything else that is to come with it. So thank you again for your time. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Vince, who's going to talk about some wonderful support provided through the IU Bloomington's 21st Century Scholar Office for students. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Greg. That was wonderful information. It's literally money in the bank. I mean, if you have any dreams that you want your child to pursue, if you have any dreams and even if you're uncertain if college plays a role, join this program so the money is in the bank. You can't beat that scholarship. Tuition is paid if you follow through and you do the things that you need to do to earn that award, adhere to all the requirements that were outlined by Greg, and you cannot beat that opportunity. So we're going to have a PowerPoint come up pretty shortly regarding the 21st Century Scholars Bloomington program, and I'll begin to talk about that in detail. One of the most important things that I want to highlight about this partnership with the state is they provide that money in the bank, that tuition scholarship, and then we provide a covenant. So you may ask, what is the covenant? The covenant is if you financially qualify, it is an additional scholarship that covers or goes towards room, board, and some other fees. So keep in mind, you have a tuition scholarship that covers your tuition. Then if you're financially apply, if you financially qualify, not apply, it's an automatic scholarship. So there's no application process for us. If you're a 21st Century Scholar, you come in with that on your application, our financial aid office automatically attaches the covenant. So there's no extra application with that. They automatically attach it if you financially qualify. So again, you have your tuition covered, and then you have this covenant that's there. So what that boils down to for a full needs student, it may mean that the cost of a year at Indiana University is knocked down to $2,000 some. You cannot beat that. And you know what that cost is? It's just living expenses. It's washing your clothes. It's transportation. It's an estimated cost of what it would take for you to live at IUB campus. And what you have here is our mission statement as a program. If you read that mission statement, you're going to see that we are here to help low-income families meet the cost of college by providing students with a wide array of support activities and services on campus, including academic tutoring, peer mentoring, housing opportunities, and professional workshops such as financial aid and overseas studies scholarship. Our mission is to provide high-quality service in the form of advocacy and holistic programming designed to promote academic achievement, career development, retention, scholarship maintenance, timely graduation at IUB, and to help them understand their role in making a positive impact on the city of Bloomington and beyond. So going back to the term of holistic and what that means. Holistic means we're taking as much in account with your experience as possible. That means we want to get to know you. This journey is a journey where we want to provide the best opportunities to support your particular field that you have chosen to pursue once you graduate. So not only while you're here, supporting you in all the collegiate things that are here, academic support service through tutoring, advising, etc. We want to make sure that you are satisfied and having a wonderful experience. So that means don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. We are your home away from home. If you come to the Bloomington campus, our office is your home away from home, and you can come see us anytime. Communicate with our staff members anytime. This is my team, myself in the middle, my right hand, Jen Berry. They are a wonderful team member in person, and getting to know them is a great experience. I mean, I'll say that about all of my staff. Everybody's very open and friendly. So these faces, if you come to Indiana University, will appear exactly like you see them. They're very bubbly, very friendly, very engaging. Victoria Witham serves as our secretary and the first person you'll see when you come in our space. Then you have Andrew Schwartz, Dr. Andrew Schwartz. He is one of our academic advisors. Rachel Boveja, she is another academic advisor with a focus on career. You have Lisa Huffman, who is here today on this call, who is my special projects coordinator. She is the one that maintains a newsletter that you'll receive regularly with tons of information and other blasts of information making you aware of opportunities on campus. Then we have Derek Robinson. You see that picture? That is the embodiment of Derek's energy. Derek is here working with different program initiatives that we have and also supporting our leadership organization. The next is Nikki Davenport. She is another AmeriCorps member who provides leadership in scholarship maintenance. So any issues with the scholarship, she is our point person. Derek and Nikki are actually employed by the Indiana Commission for Higher Education through the AmeriCorps program. I am their site supervisor, but their ultimate employment is through the state. So they have a direct line to the state to ask questions, get things resolved, and to advocate on your behalf. So we are located on the IU Bloomington campus, 300 North Jordan. Again, you have me as the director. My role is simply to be an advocate for you while you're here at Indiana University and to find different opportunities and create different opportunities for you as a scholar to excel. We provide specialized academic advisors, which I mentioned, the special projects coordinator, the AmeriCorps members, which are retention specialists. Programming. So we provide specialized advising, and we're here from the start of your career to the end of your career at Indiana University. So our advisors meet and advise you no matter what door you come into IU through. Even if you come as a direct admit, which is a different, I could explain some terminology. We have direct admits. We have 21st century scholars coming through other programs, such as the Group Scholars Program, the Hudson Holland Scholars Program, Cox Scholars. They come through many different doors, but we still are that support net for them. They come here with any questions about their scholarships or any opportunities that they see us put forth. There's around 3,000 21st century scholars on the IU Bloomington campus. So that gives you the scope of our program. We are a nice size of the freshman class. When the freshman class is selected, we're usually around 9 or 10% of the freshman class that enters IU. So our program is a nice size program. So we have Jennifer Berry, who I said earlier, serves as my right hand. She is my lead advisor and scholarship specialist. She provides all the information to the other advisors to make sure that your academic preparations for your majors and the different nuances associated with that are met. Then we also have Rachel Boveja, who I said was a career initiatives advisor. She's working as we speak. All of these advisors are right now in the midst of new student orientation, registering the freshman class, but also Rachel's engaged in meeting with different career directors in the university from the different schools and in the different offices. So we're actually planning right now for the fall to have great opportunities for the incoming students. And when you come, we'll have those opportunities for you as well. Andrew Swartz, SMART program and academic recovery. I'm going over these in detail just to let you know the wraparound holistic approach. So the SMART program is designed to provide students with the opportunity to enhance their academic performance. So if you take an academic stumble, Andrew's going to be there coordinating some programs to help you recover those grades. So what we have had is students that took a stumble one semester, they earned 3.0 or above the very next semester because they followed the plan that we have outlined to recover their academics. We provide a newsletter. We announce special events, registration for internship and internship informationals. We have a wonderful internship that we're advertising right now for our students, and we have partnerships that you'll hear about with everybody from Ascend Indiana to Eli Lilly to several other companies and organizations. We have several scholarship opportunities outside of the 21st Century Scholarship that we provide for students to be able to apply for. Employment opportunities in-house. We have student employees working, and those student employees are 21st Century Scholars. I send an all call to 21st Century Scholars. We have AmeriCorps member retention specialists, as I mentioned. And this is a little detail about them that I covered. One of the things that I didn't cover is they provide financial management workshops to make sure that you're balancing your finances, making smart choices with your covenant so that you don't go over the allotted amount of money that you have, which can be a hardship and have you working more hours. We give you the tools to be able to budget. We share where are the best places to live on campus. If you are looking at a particular apartment complex, we have these sessions where you could come in, bring that contract, or bring any questions that you may have related to housing, and we go over it so that you understand how that financially impacts your package. And we also have the Give Back program for those that enter the residence halls. It's a great opportunity for them to sign up for community service, and in exchange, the residential programs and services will provide a $5,000 scholarship for your housing, which will further reduce the cost of your housing. Graduate leadership specialists, again, for those students that are in between a 2.0 and a 2.3 and on that border of being in academic jeopardy, this person meets with students along with some others to touch base with them, provide them with some tools to enhance their academic performance. Advises our 21st Century Scholars Leadership Corps, which you'll hear from our students again. They are officers, they were officers and are officers in this organization. They perform community service, provide professional development opportunities, and with 3,000 scholars on campus, they do a wonderful job of pulling the scholars together for some social activities to make sure that we don't have anybody out there feeling that they don't have a peer group or a cohort that they can identify with. Under programming, tutoring and study tables, you don't have to be in academic jeopardy to use these tools. These are study tools. So that's the most important thing I want to press upon individuals that are looking at coming to college. Your study habits are And very important, if you have access to tutors, utilize those tutors. It's not a comment on your academic ability, it's a comment on getting the A. In college, the currency is your academic performance. So we want to give you every tool possible for you to achieve at the highest level. So one good habit is to start that now. Computer labs, we have computer labs that's available. We have mentor partnerships. We have peer mentors available, professors, corporate professionals through various initiatives. We have midterm and finals week preparation events, again, to enhance your performance, to make sure that you have what you need as far as tutors to work on those areas of concern prior to your midterm and finals. And it also is a food fest. We want to make sure that you are getting the food that you need. Finals preparation and midterm preparations also a stressful time, and sometimes students don't eat as they should. So we combine the two. We give you opportunity to get your food while you study. Career and internship presentations. Again, we want to make sure you have the best opportunities. Volunteer Corps, give back. Volunteer Corps is a part of our leadership corps. Again, that's the wing where you can engage in community service and gain those experiences. Leadership development opportunity, again, to prepare yourself for other organizations on campus. There are so many organizations on campus. So we want you not only to be engaged, but let's talk about how you can lead those organizations and make those entries into your resume that make you stand out. So leadership development opportunities are there. Very important skill as well for when you go into the working world. And many other things. We are a part of the Office of the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs, 21st Century Scholars, Community School Partnership. We are all a part of this division. We have the academic support centers, mentoring services and leadership development, Hudson Holland Scholars, Group Scholars. These programs have a number of scholars, 21st Century Scholars as a part of them. You could be a part of 21st Century Scholars Program, Hudson Holland Scholarship Program, Group Scholars Program, and get the best of all three worlds. So these programs have different dimensions. So again, when you're thinking about coming to IU, look at these programs as well. Overseas study programs. We have our own director for overseas studies that administers usually 2 summer overseas study experiences. With the current environment, of course, there's no one traveling abroad, but when it opens up, again, these opportunities are there. And guess who makes up the majority of students that travel on these trips? 21st Century Scholars. 21st Century Scholars. There's a scholarship that is offered by OVPDEMA, which is the abbreviation for Office of the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs, that helps cover the cost of those summer study abroad opportunities. So again, we invest in you. Engagement and development. What I wanted to do was take an opportunity to bring these things to life. So you see in the left top corner, that is the leadership from Leadership Corps with Derek and with Marissa Cheplick, who was our graduate student this past year. See Dakota there and the other leaders from this year. In the middle, you see Next Steps Conference advertised. That's a nice conference to attend, put on by the state, Indiana Commission for Higher Education, that we take a busload of students there and engage in that opportunity. We want as many students as possible to be able to see not only the IU Bloomington community of scholars, but the statewide community of scholars, alumni, and the supportive network that is there at the state level for them. Next to that, you see the IU flag being held, they're overseas. They're overseas. Down below, again, another overseas study opportunity. They were traveling abroad and they were able to go to China, go to Ghana, Africa, go to Brazil, go to India, go to a number of different opportunities. And that's just the DEMA trips that we have taken. There's over 300 overseas studies opportunities at Indiana University. And again, your scholarship, one of the points I don't think I mentioned yet, your scholarship, your 21st Century Scholarship, your covenant, all apply to those opportunities during the academic year that are university-sponsored overseas studies. So it's just like you're here on the campus, your tuition, your covenant applies and helps cover the cost of that experience. In the middle, you will see a young man who served as the commencement speaker, who was a 21st Century Scholar last year. Then you see a trip from one of the Living Learning Centers, the Thomas I. Atkins Living Learning Center. 2 years ago, we went to Washington, D.C., and we had a tour of the Capitol building as well as many other places. The purpose of the Thomas I. Atkins Living Learning Center is to study African American history and culture. So we were there to learn about the African American experience in Washington, D.C., along with meeting with our local statesmen to see what they had on the docket concerning students. And it was a great educational experience. So we went to Frederick Douglass's house, et cetera, while we were there. So again, I wanted to highlight that to say you have overseas studies trips, but you also have these living and learning centers. If you come to Indiana University, where it's an immersive experience and they do travel to other places in the country so that you can learn in depth and be in the footsteps of those that you're learning about. Do you have any questions? I touched upon a lot of different things, but I didn't want to make this too long with all the information that I could convey. Awesome. So any questions? Julia, you can go.
Certainly. So yeah, I think we can go ahead and open questions up about any portion of the presentation so far today. So if you've got questions for Greg or Brittany regarding the process for enrollment as a middle school student, or if you've got questions for Vince about what it's like to be a 21st Century Scholar on the Bloomington campus and the resources that are offered through his program and colleagues, please feel free. As I said, you can put those in the chat. You're welcome to unmute yourself if you want to ask directly. We encourage that as well. I think I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to ask, maybe direct this towards Brittany, to ask about, is there an appeals process to any part of the application? So in particular, when I was listening to the presentation and thinking about if I were maybe a guardian who accidentally selected that parent option and where the household income gets factored in, is there a way to do an appeals to correct anything that may have been mistakenly entered into the application? Brittany, are you able to answer that?
Yes. So in the case of, this does happen quite often where sometimes a parent goes about and files the wrong application. That's completely fine. They can reach out to us, especially if maybe they received a message that they were denied from the program. So they had the opportunity to reach out to us, especially through our outreach staff, and we can troubleshoot through what was wrong, or maybe give some more reasoning behind that denial, and be able to rectify that if the family has the proper information to provide so that we can get all of that fixed. Another thing that we want to bring up with the appeals, all state financial aid decisions are appealable. So that is a right for folks as residents, and we will review those appeals. Now, every appeal is not guaranteed to lead to the activation of the scholarship, but again, if the family has had extenuating circumstances. We definitely know the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted families in a wide variety of ways. So we've actually even made that a specific category within our appeals process on SCHOLARTRACK, so that families can communicate, how the pandemic has impacted them as far as some of these decisions. Something that may come to mind for folks, especially if there are parents on the line or parents who watch this later who maybe have lost their current employment due to COVID-19, and are haven't at this point regained that employment, regained a new income or wage. When we do that initial income check and verification later on, that again, as Greg said, is based on the prior year's taxes. But for instance, again, if you run into that situation where you are no longer employed at that time that you were enrolling your student, you can help us by providing those additional documents to show that this was my tax information for last year, but again, at the time of when I enrolled my student, that was no longer our financial situation. And that's something that we're able to review and work with families on. Again, because our goal is for as many students that are eligible, we want to make sure that they're a part of the program. So we're happy to walk through that process. And then I actually dropped a link in the chat that does have some more of that appeals information. So if folks have questions or want an idea of what are maybe some common reasons that people appeal, they can read through that and gather that information as well as we give some prompts for some of the necessary documents that we'll need for some of those appeals cases.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, encourage anybody who has questions. If you want to ask them privately, that's perfectly okay as well. We know that that maybe the group format is not preferred option for everybody. So, but we do want to make sure that we get all of your questions addressed. Maybe I can jump to Vince to ask you to talk a little bit more about the ways that you and your team and your students create community for the students at IU Bloomington. We know that it's not all academics and it's not all about the academic preparedness and study, which are vitally important, but we know that there's also a lot of awesome things happening through like you said, the volunteer corps and the Give Back program. So do you have some more examples to share of how you create community?
Sure. The Leadership Corps sends out, I'm going to focus on the Leadership Corps and then I'll talk about the things we do as a program in-house. So the Leadership Corps, they do things, they send out an all call to see who wants to go to the escape room. And then students sign up and they go to the escape room and have a good time, breaking into teams and getting to know each other and working together to get out of the escape room. For us, homecoming's a big thing. So, Leadership Corps had a cookout. They had a 21st Century Scholar cookout, inviting scholars to come by and get some food and enjoy the tailgate experience as 21st Century Scholars. Those are two examples. The other thing is their involvement in community service. So going into like Girls Inc. and doing some community service together at Girls Inc. with young ladies, young women who, girls, but with the training to become empowered women. That's the mission of Girls Inc. So what better way to have our organization go there and role model collegiate level women who are achieving academic goals, to set that map and set the student's sight at that young age on coming to college and maybe becoming a scholar if it's the opportunity for them. So there's many of those different things, working with the Banneker Center, the organization, the Benjamin Banneker Center in Bloomington, Indiana is the community center, one of the community centers, the oldest community center. So they received a grant and our students volunteered to help them and repainted the gymnasium and some areas there. So it's an opportunity just to do different things, social, volunteerism, and just watching a movie. They'll send a call out just to go and watch a movie together. So that's the benefit of the organization. For us, we do things as far as the building and our program, open houses, to promote community. We have an African American Male Initiative that we kicked off. So it's an opportunity for these young men to come together and talk. Interesting enough, the majority of these young men were in the sciences. So it was a rarity for them to see each other. One was a math major, one was a biology major, one was a psychology major. So it was a great opportunity for them to see each other, share their experience in STEM and pursuing those goals and seeking out academic role models within their specific career. So that's another example. The other thing is, again, through our providing study opportunities for them and providing the food, it's not just to create good habits, but it's an opportunity for them to socialize, get to know each other. So maybe they could take create a study group themselves and go outside of our environment and the library or even their residence halls to have this study group formed from people that come to our events. So those are a couple things that I highlight, but we do a lot to try to pull our scholars together.
Yeah, we've got, thanks Vince for that. We've got a question in the chat. Can we define what open houses are? You know, just so that, because sometimes we use terminology that
Yes.
familiar for us, but not familiar for everybody. So if you could talk a little bit about what open houses are and what they accomplish.
Okay. For us in 300 North Jordan, that's the building that the 21st Century Scholars is housed in. Within our building is the Group Scholars Program, Hudson Holland Scholars Program, our Director and Office for Overseas Studies within DEMA is located here. We have our phase mentoring program, which is under the umbrella of mentoring and strategic leadership development. They're housed here. So it's an opportunity for us to have interaction between all of our staff members and the students of these various programs. So we literally open this house, open this door up so that you could come get to know not only us and have, again, we gotta have food. So food, some giveaways. So it's an opportunity for you to float, get information about the various programs that are there. We invited in Julia's team. We invited in the Academic Support Services, Director Leslie Robinson, who is also under our umbrella. So she was there to provide information about how to utilize the tutors and when the hours are available. So it's basically an engagement opportunity, social engagement, but also informational engagement.
Thank you, Vince. Another question. So I think this is targeted towards you, Vince. You talked about trips that students can be involved in. Are there costs associated with those for the scholars who go to IU? So either local trips or those study abroad trips? Yes.
Some, I'll give you an example, some cost and some don't. It depends on, if you're in an LLC, the example I gave you for the LLC, I'll give that example. Some costs, if they are far, like a Washington, D.C., you're going to pay a couple $100. So it's usually around $300. But you're there 4 nights, 3 days. What is that? Yeah, 4 nights, 3 days. So if you can imagine going to Washington, D.C., staying that long in a hotel, and you're only paying $300, that's not enough to cover a hotel room for a day usually. But we drastically cut costs by seeking out partners. So there is that out-of-pocket expense for that. But there's other trips that community engages in that are day trips. They don't cost anything. The overseas studies programs, they cost. They're drastically reduced with scholarship opportunities that you get through OVPDEMA and other places, but you still have to have the cost of, your food and some other costs when you go abroad. Then I'll give you an example of some other partnerships in the career area. And using DC again, there is a wonderful partnership we have with our College of Arts and Sciences Career Center. Here at IU, each school has its own career center. But what they do for us, for our 21st century scholars, they say, we're going to have this, again, four-night career opportunity where you're going to hear from different governmental departments, different employers, and alumni for 4 days, right? Multiple events during each day, including networking opportunities in a social setting in the evening. So it's an opportunity for our scholars to go network. They cover the cost, all costs, except for transportation for 21st century scholars. So that's an example again where the cost would be transportation for you to be able to get there, which, a lot of students carpool, and they just, again, with us creating that community of scholars or them having other friends on campus, they go with whoever has the best car, and everybody just contributes the gas. They get there and they have a wonderful experience. I just as a side note, I attended the event just to see what it was 2 years ago, and it was the best career experience I had. I went to the State Department to hear what the State Department was offering, internships that they were offering, and learned about water, and this internship was focused on water. And we may not think about it, but we have water border disputes with Canada, with Mexico, that constantly have to be maintained. So that's one example of a good experience. And the other place I went was it's the oldest think tank in the United States. It was established in the 1800s. And you may ask, what is a think tank? These were these were people from different differing majors that were given a problem to solve, whether it be a governmental problem, whether it be a private sector problem. And they were able to think about this problem and try to come up with some solutions that are outside of the box. And they got paid for it, paid very well. And so that was an opportunity for our students to be exposed to something they may never thought about. So I could go on with the different opportunities, but there's always going to be a cost associated with things. A lot of things on campus are free, but if you go away from campus, there is at the minimum having funds to be able to buy some food, some meals, because all meals won't be covered.
Yeah,
I'd like to throw something out just real quickly to Greg and Brittany. You have all done such a wonderful job over the series talking about the benefits of the 21st Century Scholarship and outlining the requirements and so forth. Is there anything, so that's all what you have said, is there anything maybe that you haven't said that maybe you could reflect on, a common misperception in your travels all over the state that you hear from people from time to time? Maybe the most common misperception, like once I'm in and I'm a 21st century scholar, that's it. I don't have to do anything to maintain that, either through character or through grades. Is there something maybe that you hear on a regular basis you could share with the group that you haven't covered to this point in the series?
Greg, I can kick us off if you want. I would say a common misconception that we still battle, and why we're grateful for partnerships like this. A lot of folks don't realize the program still exists, and so I think that speaks to how powerful the program has been and how it may be impacting the lives of folks around them, and they didn't even know it. So we've actually been doing some celebratory things to highlight some of our alums throughout this year. and really just helping to show that message that, you know, the scholarship is still here, it's still powerful. A lot of families sometimes at first think it's too good to be true, but I mean, really just taking those initial key brief steps to sign up really sets the tone. There are things that are expected of our high school students. So we talked about in some of the previous sessions, the Scholar Success Program and what all goes into that. But I mean, even with those, they are steps to help the student with that college pathway. So, I mean, it's things like making sure they visit a college campus in person or virtually, making sure they're searching for additional scholarship dollars, understanding how financial aid works, and filing the FAFSA. And so again, even with the things we expect of the student is to really help prep them for this journey. And even with the requirements that arise in college, those are put in place to take advantage of the resources like the wonderful things that Vince has shared, but also help to make sure they get done on time, because we know that an on-time degree is normally a more affordable, cheaper one. And so how can we propel students with that momentum as well? So those are some key things that I've seen, but Greg, feel free to add any as well.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Brittany, in that, you know, I think it comes as much from people who are from Indiana as those who maybe have moved to Indiana from out of state of this is too good to be true. And for a lot of people who are from other states and come to us, I mean, it truly is, because as I was talking about earlier, not every state has a wonderful scholarship such as 21st Century Scholars, or that commitment to need-based financial aid. And one thing that Brittany and I mentioned, I believe, on several of our sessions prior to this, is that we are actually ranked fourth in the entire country in the amount of need-based aid that we provide, and first in the Midwest, beating out all of our peer states here in the Midwestern part of the United States. So that's something really that we need to celebrate and lift up in the state. I think that we're getting a whole lot better at that, but I think that much more can be done. So we want folks to understand this, you know, scholarship can be the difference maker, the game changer. And we hear that, Brittany more so than myself, because she's focused on the post-secondary and is much more connected with our alumni. But hearing from our alumni, so many of them attribute 21st Century Scholars to, you know, one, them being able to access higher education, not be weighed down with debt, and then helping them really bridge, you know, the time they were in high school going into college to being now highly successful in the career pathways that they've chosen. So I would say that that is definitely the biggest misconception that we get across the board from our families. I think something else that people sometimes get a little bit confused is just exactly what it is that we do through 21st Century Scholars. And I mentioned it during the presentation, but I think it's worth it to highlight it again, is that we are a tuition-based program. So we're focused on the cost of classes. Outside of that, we also pay for regularly assessed fees, which is kind of a tongue twister, and I want to break down what that is too. Looking at mandatory fees that students pay for attending your college, and that includes all students. So things such as a technology fee, capital improvement fee, oftentimes student activity fees. We are committed to paying those charges for our students as well. Typically, you're looking at $100 to $150, maybe a little bit more per charge. But if you multiply, you know, that by 4, and then over the course of 4 years for an undergraduate degree, those charges tend to add up as well, and we're committed to paying that for our students. However, we do not pay any other cost of attendance outside of those two areas. So things such as room and board, books, other cost of attendance, we do not pay through the state, but we do lift up and promote wonderful opportunities of supplemental scholarships and grants that are provided by our partner institutions, such as the IU Covenant is a wonderful example. Similarly, the Purdue Promise is available through Purdue, and there is a lot in between that's offered not just at our public institutions, but also our private schools. And for good reason. They know that through the Scholar Success Program and so many other things that are going on in high school, our students are coming away better prepared than ever before, and they want students who are going to be on their campus and be successful. So that's why our institutions have not just those scholarships available, but also those great examples of wraparound supports that Vince highlighted moments ago.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming to us from the IU room in your house. Obviously, you've got that decked out in red and white. So we do appreciate the subtle plug there, my
I did
man.
it last night.
I knew you would.
Can I address one of the questions in the chat, Jim?
Absolutely.
So someone asked, when do the middle schoolers start? So the key thing that's expected within 7th grade is really enrollment. Now with our Scholar Success Program activities, the student can begin to work ahead on some of those. So for instance, if your 8th grader has already done a campus visit, or maybe done a virtual tour or something like that, they can go ahead and create their own ScholarTrack account, because the student will need an account for themselves to log those activities, and they can put that in. So they could definitely get a jump start on some of those things. That's often what we've worked with IU to do throughout the summer within that focus through some of their pre-college programs. So yes, a student can start as early as middle school. There is a restriction. In order for that student to create their ScholarTrack account, they do need to be at least 13 years old. So if you have a scholar you've recently registered or are about to register and they're still 12, have them wait until that birthday to set up the account. But by all means, feel free to start exploring what some of those activities are and begin to start checking some of those things off.
And I just wanted to add to that highlight what Brittany said about there are a number of pre-college programs that are available to you to start taking advantage of those opportunities. Many of the programs that Vince and my teams work together to create are very much focused on helping students reach those ScholarTrack requirements. So we won't be participating in person this year, but typically we're at events with Greg and Brittany at the Indiana Black Expo, the Indiana Latino Expo, and other statewide events to help bring those activities to you in your neighborhoods and areas. So you can join us at events such as that to help start checking off those requirements. And events like this, the Pre-College Academy, we're looking to expand this in the future years to include targeted outreach events for each grade level. So we'll have opportunities for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders focused on helping you meet those requirements. And do so either virtually or in person as our opportunities allow. So you can look for those events at our website for community and school partnerships, which is collegeready.indiana.edu. And I'll post that, or have Jim post that in the chat here shortly, along with the IU Bloomington pre-college activities that incorporate all the campus programs, which is precollege.indiana.edu, if I'm not mistaken. So good questions. I did have another question that I'm going to ask Greg and Brittany to address. So if a local organization who is, let's say, a 21st Century Scholar Champion, they help to host similar events in their area, if they help families to enroll their scholars, how can those families then go and verify that enrollment to make sure that that is taking place?
So it can be done multiple ways. A family could actually reach back out to that community partner, especially I'm imagining in this case that the organization, someone on their staff has a ScholarTrack account. So they're able to sit there with the student and search for them and pull it up, and it'll show the status of their 21st Century Scholars application. If they feel more comfortable, they could also reach out to their school counselor to look that up, because that's something they'll also be able to see. Or they can reach out to us or as well as their corresponding outreach coordinator in the region, and they could also help verify that information for them. If a parent decides to set up their account after that's taken place, which they can do, they will have the option to add student, and so we'll ask for the student's name, social security number. They'll put that in, and also once the student has accepted that parent account access, they should also be able to see the status of their 21st Century Scholars there as well. So it all really stems back to SCHOLARTRACK, but there's a variety of different ways and various folks who can help with that verification.
Excellent. So yeah, another reason why that list that Greg, you shared with us earlier of all those required fields, it's important to have that information ready to go so that matching of, student social security number, et cetera, can happen. So great. Vince, did you want to talk a little bit about the Next Steps conference?
When the previous question was asked of me about free opportunities, I forgot to highlight the Next Steps conference. That is a free conference for our scholars that we go to, and there's meals provided by the state, and it's a wonderful opportunity for students. So I did not want to forget to highlight that as a free conference opportunity. There's several others, but this one I really want to plug.
And with that, Vince, and we'll add, this will be kind of an update. We also will be pivoting a lot of that content virtually this year, just again, in light of the pandemic, and we want to maintain, safety and security for folks. So there will be a series of webinar content for families that are interested. Next Steps is typically geared towards our current college scholars. So, once your student has began their coursework, happy to plug into that, or if you want to just go ahead and jump on, especially for some of these web-based opportunities, that works for us too. But know that they will be rolling out this school year virtually.
Nice. We should have an increase in attendance.
Absolutely.
That's great. Greg, maybe I'll direct this question to you. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the language resources and opportunities? I'm thinking specifically with our Latinx community.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Julia. For anyone on the line, or if you know any families who may need Spanish-speaking support, I'm one of our bilingual staff members for outreach, so please feel free to connect with me or connect any other families with me. More than glad to help in anything that you all would need. We also have some really awesome program infrastructure in place to support our Latinx families, specifically with a program that we launched in December 2019 that's termed Padres Estrellas. And what that essentially does is take 5 community Hispanic Latino leaders in South Bend, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, Evansville, Columbus, and work within their communities in ways that I don't think we've done before at the Commission, really taking things by the community to the community. We have a lot of success working in schools, but that means that families have to be there. And obviously, once that happens, we're successful in getting students enrolled in 21st Century Scholars or whatever that might be. But we also recognize that there are a lot of barriers out there that families may experience, whether that's language, whether that's familiarity with the school, being comfortable in the school, all these different dynamics. And so that's what we seek to do with this program, is really bridge the gap where we have noted that folks have challenges. And so these community leaders are working very diligently in their neighborhoods, in their cities, with other community organizations to really get the important word out about 21st Century Scholars. And at the same time, going back to really a shift in our outreach strategy too at the Commission, and that's making things too generational. So they're also talking with families about our Next Level Jobs Workforce Ready Grant, which is a program that's similar to Scholars in that it provides full tuition, but it's focused on high demand certificate programs in 5 different disciplines, looking at things such as advanced manufacturing, logistics, transportation, health and life sciences. We're talking with families and adults through this program as well. So we're saying, if you're wanting to move up in your current company and you need an educational credential in which to do so, here's an affordable way to do it. We're also helping individuals pivot from, maybe what they're doing to what they, ultimately have as a goal. So if anyone on the phone would want to discuss the Next Level Jobs program as well, at the conclusion of today's session, we would love to talk about that. We also have our enrollment documentation now provided, not just in English and Spanish, but French, Burmese, Chin, and trying to think if I'm missing one. I think that's it, but we've also applied for a recent grant too, where we look to expand that out into other languages for our families. So definitely, if you guys have any questions about that or want to connect me with folks in your community who need that support, please do. And I think that answered all the question you asked, Julia. So thank you for that question.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, but we do want to make sure we give you an opportunity to ask those now. Here in a couple of minutes, I'll ask Jim to put up the slide again with Greg and Brittany's contact information, just to make sure you've got that. You can always reach out to us. But while we're waiting to see if there's any last questions, Vince, anything you'd like to add about today's session or the series in total?
I too thank everybody for being here. Again, thank our partners, Greg and Brittany, for always being there for us in reaching out to you, the potential 21st century scholars. We want to make sure that you stay connected with us, as there'll be more opportunities coming up. Keep focused on your academic goals for our students that are a part of this. There's so much that's out there and available for you. If you take advantage of the opportunities and stay focused, don't be discouraged, and stay focused. So those are the main points that I want to make. And at the end of your journey, when you're selecting colleges, and we will be here excited if you choose IU Bloomington, so that you can take full advantage of the things that we've outlined. And by the time that you get here, we'll have a few others. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Vince. I pulled up some notes because I want to make sure I don't leave anybody out. I'm going to echo a lot of what Vince has said. First, I want to say thank you to all of you who joined us today. It's important that you're making this a priority for you and your scholar, and so a big kudos and thank you to you. A special thank you to those who have joined us for multiple weeks for our conversations, and those who have joined every week. We really appreciate all of you. Thanks to our partners, again, especially Brittany and Greg, who have joined us for several sessions and who have been amazing partners, not only through this series, but through all of our activities together. And a thank you to the student ambassadors for their time and expertise. A big, big thank you to Lisa Huffman and Jim Melikar for all of their work behind the scenes to make this series run as smoothly as it did. Certainly could not have done it without you. And thank you to the IU Women's Philanthropy Leadership Council for their financial support. And I'd just like to conclude to say that, we hope this series has been helpful for you and welcome your feedback on ways to improve it for next year. We've also hoped to continue to engage with you, not only through community and school partnerships, but 21st Century Scholars Office and other programs at IU. We're here to serve you and look forward to working with you on your college readiness journey. So thanks, Jim, for putting that contact information back up, because we want to make sure if you do have questions after our session or would like to ask those individually, you are more than welcome to contact Brittany or Greg directly, or you can contact us and we'll make sure those questions get answered. So we'll stick around for a little while longer just to see if any other questions come in. But with that, we want to say have a wonderful Saturday, and we look forward to seeing you as scholars and pre-college participants in our programs. Thanks so much.